Good evening. How's everybody doing? Appreciate you coming out tonight. It is 6 o'clock, so we're going to get started. Sadly, we do not have a young person tonight, so it's going to be up to me to call the meeting to order. So we will get that done, and let's call the roll here.
Matthews?
Here.
Ingalls? Here. Flood?
Here.
Bolt?
Here.
Rutherford?
Here.
Seaborn?
Here.
Salter?
Here.
Freeman?
All righty. Do we have anyone for the invocation? It's going to be you. All right. Thank you, sir.
Pray with me. Father God, thank you for just another year that's coming to an end, God, for the blessings that we've had in this year, God, and for everything that we're looking forward to the next year. God, I pray for the men and women of our staff, God, and the men and women up here on this commission. God, I just pray that as we continue on through the year, God, that we focus best on things that we know are going to create a better Shawnee. God, thank you again for all the amazing folks that work so hard to make this city such a great city. It's through your son's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, sir. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty. So item 1 is citizens' participation. Same rules as we've always used. 3-minute limit per person, 12-minute limit per topic. Our city attorney will be our timekeeper. And when you get 3 minutes, we will tell you that it's time to stop. So you won't hear any responses from us until probably commissioners' comments. So if you're interested, please stick around to the end. I have more than one page tonight, which is good. I like it when we have lots of people. So Rob Morris, you are first up, sir.
Good evening. First thing I'm going to talk about tonight is the fire downtown. With the fire marshal's report that's come out, and there's no investigation going to be done onto how is the building burned down, yet we all know how it burned down. Comes out that before we kicked the people out of that building that day, it was already known that they had threatened to burn the building down if we kicked them out. Well, guess what? Now we found out what the homeless people are willing to do. They're willing to burn a building down if we kick them out of one. That should say a whole lot to y'all. And the fact that we did it just so that Shawnee could have a parade is kind of sad. Number one, we didn't have permission to go in there and kick anybody out. Property owner never gave the city of Shawnee permission. So you evicted people out of a building illegally. Then, because of the parade, you bulldozed the building down too soon before we could find out what really happened. And luckily, it came out in the report, in a note, not a big thing. So, as much as I love the Christmas parade, a building burning down is not worth the Christmas parade in this town, not to have the fireworks sitting there. With the parade itself, parade shouldn't even happen. To get one of these nice little event permits like this, it's 60 days in advance. Yet the insurance policy is 4 days before the parade. Has to be 60 to even get this. Yet this is 4 days before the parade. It also says that there's no written agreements apparently with anyone downtown. It sounds like a whole lot of people were told, don't worry about your building, we'll take care of it. This is sad. Now, I don't know who it was that made the final call to bulldoze that building down. I know whose name is on it. However, there were other people down there that day, and I don't for one think that just because there's a name on a form that that's the person that actually pushed to have that building torn down. The last thing I want to say, and I'm done on that. The owner has told me that anyone that wants a Dr. Pepper brick or wants to have a piece of history from Shawnee, at your own risk, of course, you're more than welcome to go down there and get a brick. Because the city apparently is charging the owner of the building to remove all of the debris that the owner didn't cause. and that's not fair. So I'm gonna see if I can help them out. Everybody go get a Dr. Pepper brick. Show some support for somebody in this town. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is, let's see, LaDonna Jones Bryce. I saw her here. There she is. How are you this evening?
I'm doing well.
That's
Well,
good.
not 100%, but it's all good.
That's good.
I want to yield my time to Rob.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you, LaDonna. Okay, on the consent agenda, why are we doubling up on committees again? Y'all all vote for the people that are appointed to these committees so you know who's on them already. Number 4, for the OBU, really I'm not going to read through all these because when OBU comes around to do their part, it'd be nice for them to answer them. Number 5 is a conflict of interest. Case in point, a commissioner had to abstain from voting on Shawnee Forward, period. Not a specific part of Shawnee Forward, but Shawnee Forward, period. So putting this person on a committee that oversees a private entity that the spouse works for, I may have said that wrong, I apologize if I did. Having a spouse that works there, it's a conflict of interest. I disagree with legal counsel on this. It's a conflict of interest. Haven't seen anyone else that disagreed with me either. And I've asked legal counsel myself. Now, number 9, Red Rock. It's started out as 23 hours at the most. And then by the time they voted on it, it was 5 to 7 days that people would be there. Now that's right next door to a daycare, number 1. Did we ask the daycare and the parents there if they want a mental health facility near their children? Hey, that's a fair question. Also, that's where UPS is. And at 9 a.m. and then at night, all those trucks come barreling out of there to go places and deliver packages. And now you're going to disrupt that and send it through other places in town. I wonder if anybody did a traffic study. 12, and last thing, the Kayak Dock. We still don't really have an answer. Benson's gone. We don't have an answer. Will the dock be moved? We know there's been money to say it would be moved to a safer location. Everybody's asked for it to be moved. No one is against it. No one is against it. So will it be moved? Does it need to be said exactly why the installer put it where it is now? Would the people that told him to put it there, even though he said it wasn't in a good place to put? Who's liable for it? It's being used right now. There's pictures online. It's being used. Who's liable? The city? Avitas? The banks? Who? Because if somebody gets hurt, that's going to come out in court real quick. And I hope nobody gets hurt. So with that, thank you.
All right, thank you again. All righty, next up is Steve Norwood. Steve, come on down. How are you doing?
Fine. I just wanted to say I'm Chief Operating Officer for Red Rock, and we've not tried to pull anything on anybody. It's always been a crisis center.
Right.
And we've served the Shawnee community for 40 years, and we look forward to putting new facilities in Shawnee and serving you. And if you have any questions during agenda number 9, we'll be glad to answer them.
Thank you, sir. All righty, next up is Amy Camarado. Hopefully I said that right. How are you doing, Amy?
I have something for you guys.
You may, yeah.
Sorry.
Absolutely. No, you.
Excited.
We'll let him pass those out. Your clock hasn't started yet. You just wait. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All righty, it's all yours.
Merry Christmas, Commissioners. Over the last several months, and even the last commission meeting, Commissioners have approved a committee to make recommendations over the Shawnee Twin Lakes on safety, commercial, and recreation. Items 8 and 12B on tonight's agenda should be rejected or delayed until recommendations from the committee can be made. The topic of Airbnbs at the Shawnee Twin Lakes is being addressed along with commercial recommendations. In front of you are pictures from today. These were taken at the handicap kayak launch. As you will notice, as the water goes down, it is virtually unusable. The bottom picture of the 3 is the ramp that they would be putting their kayak launch on, and as you can see, nobody could get a kayak on that. So while it was being used, it's not able to be used right now because of the location. It has been publicized that an agreement has been made outside of the public's eye to permit a kayak business where the launch is currently located. Is this a prudent decision without allowing the committee you appointed to give their recommendations? Approving $180,000 to be spent on this infrastructure causes several problems. The city would be funding the infrastructure of a commercial business. What fees will be collected from that proposed business, and how long would it take to recoup $180,000? It has not been established that that area would be deemed a good place for commercial, or that the location in question is the best place for the kayak business to be located. If that area is deemed commercial, it would be best served to have something that can draw larger tax dollars, fees, etc., particularly as it is at the crossroads of 2 major roads with easy access to highways and the freeway. $180,000 could be spent on other things which have been promised to the lake, or even the city of Shawnee. Roads, repairs that need to be done, a lake ranger, a permanent dock, etc. By approving the $180,000 to be spent, the commission would be verifying that what myself and other citizens fear, that you would move forward regardless of recommendations by the public and or committees established to make recommendations. I think it's important that you come back with solutions, and so I offer one. Move the kayak launch to the Lake 2 loading dock. There's several reasons why this would benefit the city, including it would eliminate the dangers of the launch located at the end of the canal. It would save the need to pave and create a sidewalk to that area because it's already paved. It would eliminate the argument from lake participants and residents about the current location, and it would allow disabled kayakers the ability to access the launch immediately. Please allow the necessary time for the advisory committee to make recommendations to the commission. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. Wolf Googler, you're up, sir. How are you, Wolf? Good to see you.
Mr. Mayor, City Commissioners, I'm also here to ask you to reject item number 12B on tonight's agenda for the following reasons. The mayor set up a Lake Advisory Committee, and at the last commission meeting, the city attorney, who acts as our chair, requested and received approval to extend our timeline by 90 days. The 3 core areas we identified are safety, commercialization, and lake infrastructure improvements. This item relates to all 3 of these areas, so we are putting the cart before the horse if you vote on this evening. Second, the current infrastructure as it relates to safety is nowhere where it should be. The $180,000 being requested would go a long way towards adding safety features. For instance, a permanent city dock where a police or fire rescue boat could be housed and allow for quick response to water emergencies. I'm not sure how we currently deal with a handicapped kayaker or boater that ends up in the water. And third, the 3 lake residents that sit on the committee held a meeting with lake residents to get their input. I can summarize by saying that many were disenchanted with the city's past promises to spend the increased leaseholder fees on items such as road improvements, which are in sad condition, public safety, and upgrades to the existing park structures. Thank you for your time and your service to the community, and I wish you all a Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much. Let's see, next up is Representative Del Curbs. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How's the mayor and the city council this evening?
Doing well.
I brought props. It is that time of the year. Many of you know I'm state representative. I'm also the chair of the House Agricultural Development. So we work with the Oklahoma Pork Council, and it is the Give a Ham Challenge. I was challenged by the speaker, Charles McCall, to give a ham. So I'm giving a ham to St. Paul's United Methodist Church for their community dinners. And I was at the county commissioners meeting and challenged them to give a ham to a community or a needy family in their districts, respective districts. And I am here this evening to challenge all 7 of you to go buy a ham and give it to a charity or a family that's in need for the holiday times. So that's my challenge to all of you. And this is my favorite part because I get to say all these wonderful things and you guys can't answer. So I appreciate that. And that challenge is set forth, and I'd also extend that challenge to the city attorney and the city manager and assistant city manager. So I will challenge all. Thank you.
There you go. Community renewal.
Give it to who you are. There it is.
Very cool.
All righty, very good. So my understanding, let's see, we are to item 2. So consider approval of the consent agenda. Anybody would like to pull off consent agenda? If not, is there anyone like to make a motion?
Move to approve.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second.
And Mark. All right, we have motion and a second for approval of item 2. We'll call the question. And that passes 7-0. Item 3 is our presentation by Animal Control, Pet of the Week. I understand we do not have a pet this week, so we will just move on then. Item 4 is a presentation by Randy Smith, Executive Vice President for Business and Administrative Services, Oklahoma Baptist University. So, Mr. Smith, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners and Mayor. Appreciate the opportunity to be before you tonight. I did want to provide some information about the Oklahoma Baptist University Authority. I was unable to attend the meeting at which this was on the agenda previously. I was unavoidably detained, and my apologies for that. I also want to thank the city attorney for his swift review and his decision on the suitability of the final candidate for the OBU Authority Board. I did provide an OBU fact sheet that was in your packets. I'm not going to insult you by reading that to you again, but I do want to point out some pertinent parts of that, just the most important things. So the OBU Authority has been around for more than 50 years. It has been in existence since 1969 to promote the development of Oklahoma Baptist University. And obviously the commission in 1969 that accepted the authority believed it was important to promote OBU. I had a gentleman correct me one time. I said OBU was the first major economic development that Shawnee did, and he corrected me. That was Tim Berg, and he said, no, it was the railroad. OBU was second. And there's no doubt that the city of Shawnee was in the bidding process to bring OBU to Shawnee in 1910. And they outbid several other cities in order to bring a university to Shawnee. And it's been a great partnership ever since then. And the OBU Authority has been a part of that partnership. So the OBU Authority is an instrumentality of the city of Shawnee. However, the authority and the debt that it issues has no impact on the city's budget. The city has no responsibility whatsoever for any debt issued by the authority. The authority can only issue debt to promote the welfare and the development of OBU, and typically that has been for the construction. In fact, the 4 issuances that you see on there, the 2012 and 2013 were issued in order to build new housing on the university. The 2015A was issued to refinance the debt on the Recreation and Wellness Center, and the 2015B was to basically finalize the financing of Stavros Hall, which is our state-of-the-art nursing building. And so this has been a very important part of the university's development over the years. And I also put in the notes that there was a comment previously about St. Gregory's. St. Gregory's had its own authority. That was very similar, but it was through the county. And I'm absolutely aware of other private universities that use the Oklahoma State Housing Finance Authority to accomplish the same thing. I believe it's a benefit to OBU and to the community that we have the OBU Authority and that we're able to issue the tax-exempt debt through the authority to promote the development of OBU. So once again, the city has no obligation. The city has loaned no money to OBU. OBU has no money owed to the city. The authority has borrowed the money, in this case for these 4 issuances, from some banks, and OBU has an agreement to pay the authority so the authority can make its payments to those banks. And I can guarantee you the OBU has never missed a payment, never been late on a payment. I sign those checks every week, or there's about one a week. So I would be glad to answer any questions that you may have about the authority.
Anybody got questions? I think everybody's good. I really appreciate you coming out and providing the information. It's been very, very helpful.
Okay, and thank you so much for considering the appointees that were recommended by the OBU Board of Trustees.
Right, so that's important to point out. I mean, you make that recommendation to us. You let us know who you would like to have on your board. I mean,
That's
it works
right.
a little differently than some of the
in
other
fact,
boards and commissions that we have.
I'm sure the city attorney noted this. When the authority was first created, the charter had the initial appointees to the authority, but then relatively soon after that, there was an amendment to the charter that basically changed it to the OBU Board of Trustees making a recommendation to the commission, and then the commission basically being able to say yes or no.
Right, and that's exactly what happened about a month ago. You sent me the list of folks that you would like to have on your board, and then I passed those on to the commission here for ratification. So
Yes, sir.
yeah, very good.
Thank you
All
for the
right. Thank you
opportunity
so
to
much.
clear up that misunderstanding about the debt.
Absolutely, appreciate it.
Thanks, Randy.
All righty. We are up to item 5, consideration of mayor's appointment. So this will be, again, the Oklahoma Baptist University Authority, and Mr. Vondern, you are up, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. I think probably first and foremost, this is one of those unique opportunities. This probably I may submit it as a bar exam question because there's a lot of nuances to this particular issue, and I appreciate Mr. Morris raising it when he did, because it did prompt us to look at a lot of things, and I think provide the opportunity for Mr. Smith and myself and the new city manager to become a little bit more educated on the relationship between the city and the trust. And so I think that was an excellent opportunity. In doing so, I agree with everything that Randy just said with regard to why the trust was formed, how it exists. But I think the important distinction really is twofold as you consider this appointment, and ultimately the opinion that's been provided by my office that there is not a conflict under Title 60, which governs public trusts. So we have the consideration of the fact that's been raised that Ms. Milo is an employee of Shawnee Forward. Shawnee Forward is a separate entity from the city of Shawnee. There is a contractual relationship there, but ultimately it does not carry over to the level of a conflict with regard to an appointment to this trust, because the city, while the beneficiary of the trust, does not control the trust and is not, as Mr. Smith pointed out, encumbered by the debts of the trust. And so that's really the first prong that we looked at. The second prong, and without getting too deep in the weeds, relates to the actions and activities of the trust itself and its relationship with the university. And a Title 60 public trust is in and of itself designed to be a separate entity from not only its beneficiary, but whatever its intended purpose for service would be. And so in this case, absent a situation where we have officers that are officers either of the city or of the university that are also officers of the trust, or familial relationship in the event or in the scenario where we have a for-profit director, then we don't have a direct conflict that would give rise to that. And so I hope that was easy enough to follow, but we did do a pretty exhaustive review. The trust indenture itself that formed the authority has no prohibition against this. The amendments Mr. Smith referenced, which put more ratification and control in this body and away from the university itself, was a step in that direction. And again, I believe that this move, it's a recommendation. It's not one that you have to follow. I certainly understand there may be more considerations outside of the legal ones, but as far as a legal conflict, we do not believe one exists. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Back up questions for Joe while we've got him.
So, which Mr. Morris was more so, the conflict for him was more husband and wife type, and that's more on the OBU side.
OBU
It
side.
releases our liability of it, but, so I wonder what OBU's attorney, how they interpreted that.
I couldn't speak to what advice they may have obtained with regard to that, but I would say that I don't think that it's relevant outside of vetting whether or not Ms. Milo's husband is a director or officer of the university. Him simply being an employee, which is what has been represented to us, would not trigger that.
Big conflict.
Right. Now, if he were to be promoted or something like that to where, or elected more accurately, then there could be a situation where a potential conflict arises under Title 60. But his status as an employee does not in and of itself trigger that. Again, I'm not speaking as to what due diligence the university did, but that was what we did, and I suspect theirs would be similar.
Any questions? Is there anything you'd like to add to that, Randy, or no? Okay. Very good. Ben, you got a question?
In a lot of the public trusts, the wording is direct or indirect conflict of interest. Could this be perceived as an indirect conflict of interest?
Without perceived or legally? Because I think it could be perceived as just about anything. I think it has. And I think it's right that it's been questioned and looked at. Do I believe that a court would interpret that the language of the trust indenture, when applied with Title 60, which is the controlling law for public trusts, do we believe that a court would find that conflict of interest? And we've provided the opinion that we do not. Perception, I don't begin to take guesses on that.
Yep. Any other questions? No questions? All righty. So, at this point, I personally will make the motion that we appoint Ms. Milo to the OBU Authority Board.
I'll second.
All righty, so we have a motion and a second for approval of item 5. We will call the question. Motion passes 7-0. So we move on to item 6, consideration of a final plat of the Hyatt Addition, Section 4 subdivision located near North Harrison Avenue and East 45th Street, case number PL 06-21, applicant Richard White Cotton for Cotton Homes LLC. And Rachel Klein is up. How are you this evening?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. This is a request for the final plat of the Hyatt Addition Section 4 subdivision. In February of 2020, the Shawnee Planning Commission, as well as the City Commission, Planning Commission on the 12th of February, City Commission on the 18th of February 2020, voted for conditional approval of the preliminary plat. When the final plat was submitted, it was reviewed by staff, and all of the conditions that were mentioned had been corrected. The city engineer has reviewed and found that what has been supplied is sufficient. When the Planning Commission met most recently, staff recommended and the Planning Commission recommends approval of the Hyatt Addition Section 4 subdivision as presented. And if you have any questions.
All right, any questions?
I have
But it
one.
is
On the
staff-
drawings, it appears to show an outlet to the south, crossing Adeline Drive to the west of the new part. Is that accurate?
Are you asking, does the plat continue west of where the line is?
No, if you look, lot 30, if you take Adeline Drive, which goes east-west, south, it appears to show an exit there.
That is outside this plat.
Okay.
I would be happy to look into that further for you to answer the question, but it's not part of the plat
Okay. I
review
get you.
tonight.
Okay. Any other questions? I'd like to make a motion. Up or down?
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second.
Thank you. All righty, we have a motion and a second for approval of item 6. We will call the question. And that passes 7-0. Thank you very much. Consideration, item 7 is consideration of final plat for Wolverine Industrial Park Subdivision located west of North Harrison Avenue on Wolverine Road, case number PL 07-21, applicant Stephen Landis for Landis Engineering LLC, and Ms. Klein is up again.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioners, again, this subject property is located west of North Harrison Avenue on the north side of Wolverine Road. The proposed subdivision is approximately 49 acres with 8 lots and is currently zoned I3, which is Industrial Heavy District. In January of this year, January 6th, the Planning Commission voted to recommend conditional approval of the preliminary plat of the Wolverine Industrial Park subdivision. On January 19th of this year, the City Commission voted for conditional approval of that preliminary plat. When staff received the final plat as submitted, the requested changes, which included all of the conditions on the preliminary plat, had been corrected. The city engineer has reviewed it. Planning staff and the Planning Commission recommend approval of the final plat of Wolverine Industrial Park subdivision as presented.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions for Ms. Klein while we've got her?
Did that conditional use fall in line with our comprehensive plan, our most recent comprehensive plan?
It was the conditions of the preliminary plat that were met, not an actual conditional use on the plat.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Anybody else got any questions? We want to make a motion.
I'll move that we approve.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second.
I think Cammie beat you there.
Yep.
All righty. We have motion and a second for approval of item 7. We will call the question. And that motion passes 7-0. Item 8, public hearing in consideration of an ordinance to rezone property located at 15413 Nickens Road from A1 Rural Agricultural District to A1 Rural Agricultural, let's see, I have agriculture with a LPZ, Lake Protection Zone, overlay and a CUP conditional use permit for the purpose of operating a bed and breakfast Airbnb. Case number CUP 03-21, applicants Zachary and Jennifer Grinnell and Sherry and Greg Rhodes. Ms. Kleiner, it's your night, so you're up again.
Again, thank you, sir, commissioners. You've seen this before, and starting in September, it's
Right.
kind of gone back and forth from the Planning Commission to the City Commission. Missed a meeting, and so when we get to most current times, at the Planning Commission meeting on December 1st, Staff explained that the subject property, which had requested the CUP, has a lake lot lease, which clearly states the property shall not be sublet. Based upon that, the application should not have been accepted, since approval is not possible. The planning staff recommended, and the planning commission agreed to recommend denial of the case CUP 03-21. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anybody got questions?
So basically what you're saying is we, as the city code is, we can't approve it
That's correct.
unless we change city code.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? So what we will do then is we will open the public hearing. Is there anybody here that is here to speak in favor of the proposal? Not seeing, I will move to, is there anybody here to speak against it? Yes, sir. Yeah, it's all yours. Come up front, please, and use the microphone.
If I could, Mayor, before he gets here.
Yes, ma'am.
I did receive a call from Rita Sparks, who is one of the adjacent neighbors to the
Right.
applicant. She and her husband are ill and not able to attend.
Right.
They asked that I bring attention to Mayor and Commissioners their protest letter that was included in the packet that
Right.
you've received.
Okay.
They just wanted me to mention it if given the
Okay.
opportunity.
Very good. Thank
Thank
you. Come on up, sir. Microphone's all yours.
Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. The OPZ directly, they're trying to put B&B and Airbnb as the same thing. And Airbnb is not the same as a bed and breakfast. A bed and breakfast is owner occupied. Airbnb is they rent the whole place out.
Mhm.
Also, where they're trying to do it, everything is right on top of each other. There's no boundary lines. In our packet, I'm right next door, and y'all have pictures and stuff where we had their renters over there bring their dogs in our yard to use the bathroom and do all that other stuff. That's why we're opposed to it. And we've spoke to them, and they don't seem too accommodating to try to help us correct anything. So, and that is another reason why we're opposed to it. It's just not a good spot for it.
Okay. Could I didn't get your name. I'm sorry.
I'm Jay Murphy.
Jay Murphy.
Yes, and
Okay.
I'm on the plot right next to it.
Right. Okay. Very good.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, thank you.
Appreciate your time. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in opposition? Seeing none, then we will close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Prior to any motions or vote.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Floor is yours.
Just for information to the commission, my office has been contacted by counsel that's been retained by the applicant with regard to this. Obviously, no action's been taken because this body has not taken formal action, but they are prepared to do so. Again, that's not to influence a decision either way. I just want the commission to have full information as you entertain it. They have been receptive to working with the city to address their concerns and issues moving forward, and the potential of the city bringing to you at some point in the near future a home sharing ordinance that would address regulation of Airbnb within the city limits. So all those things are in the works, but I did want the commission to be aware of that prior to any motions or vote.
So in hearing that, I mean, would your recommendation be like to defer this or I mean, is that what, in any way what you're asking is that we just defer it?
I am not, and at the risk of muddying the waters anymore, I would defer to the city manager with regard to that request. We've not discussed that, but I think there's a path forward, at least temporarily, without it being adversarial with the applicant until such time as there's an opportunity for this commission to entertain a home sharing ordinance. Where it goes from there, I couldn't speculate beyond that.
Okay, and I would love to hear your thoughts.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. As it is currently against the code, and specifically notated in the lake lot lease, you would be going against your own rules and regulations if you were to approve this item. So we are actively working on a home share, but we're also waiting for the Lake Advisory Committee recommendation to see what comes out of that process. So I would ask that you follow Planning Commission's recommendation to deny. We should have never accepted that particular application.
Okay. Very good. That clears that up. Thank you so much. Well, did you have anything? Yes, we closed the public hearing, so we are back to discussion.
I was just going to mention, along with the Lake Advisory Committee, the Planning Commission has begun efforts to look at home sharing for all of the city, and of course recognizing the differences in what home sharing looks like in Shawnee versus other communities is the biggest. But I don't have a date for you, as it's I think a couple of days before a big holiday. So the Planning Commission hopes to have something to you guys, at least preliminary, to start with, within the next couple of months.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right, any other discussion?
How do we help something like this from happening again? For somebody to get this far in the process before we realize that we've allowed them to get this far without any options of them being successful in their requests.
I would say that paying attention to the Code of Ordinance, and specifically the zoning code as it's written, although fallible, it is established. We are in the process of, I believe, negotiations might be on the horizon for a new zoning code, ordinance, and development regulations, which would definitely address something like this. Part of the process is to make sure if there are any conflicts or gaps that those are addressed. As it stands right now, diligence and staff allowing themselves to be accountable and asking for assistance from others to double check the work.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody got anything else? Anyone like to make a motion?
I'll move that we deny the application.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to deny the application here in item number 8. So I'll make sure, so a yes is to deny. Since the motion was to deny, if a yes vote would be to, yes, sir.
So a yes vote will be to deny the application, and no vote would be to not deny the application.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure we're all on the same page moving forward. All right, so we will call the question. And motion passes to deny the application by 7-0. All right. Item 9 is a public hearing in consideration of an ordinance to rezone property located at 1420 North Harrison Avenue from R3 multifamily residential district to C3 commercial highway district with a PUD plan unit development for the purpose of an adult crisis and urgent recovery clinic. Case number PUD 02-21, applicant Terry Pollock for SDP Solutions, Inc. And Ms. Klein, it is your night, so you're up again.
You bet. Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. This application is indeed for rezoning with a PUD planned unit development zoning overlay. The existing property is zoned R3, which is multifamily, and the request is to rezone to C3, which is highway district commercial. That would be in line with most of the zoning designations along North Harrison. The PUD is an overlay district. It is not a zoning district on its own. It exists to allow for minor changes to the existing code to be altered with a specific reason and with actual numbers. The code lays out what is required, including a design statement, a development plan, and asks that 13 elements be responded to in that design statement. Staff did receive the submittals after it was noticed appropriately to the newspaper, property owners within 300 feet of the perimeter of the property, and we put up a sign. So I'm here to talk to you about the PUD part. I'll do my very best to answer any questions I can about the actual use, which is a permitted use in C3, to address some concerns that came up previously. Staff's initial meeting with the applicants were to discuss the rezoning and the PUD. The use itself was established at the beginning of the meeting as appropriate. So the details of that staff and the planning commissioners and/or the public discussed are not to be set in stone. I believe that the very back of your agenda packet, the CEO of Red Rock Behavioral Health Services has done a great job describing what the actual use looks like for the city of Shawnee. I'm happy to answer any questions I can about that, but again, I'm better here for you for the PUD and the rezoning part. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, very good. Any questions? You have a question on your face.
There's a bunch on this one. First, I mean, C3 is a 30% building coverage, correct?
Yes.
And so we're going 46% on this?
Right. It's a 14% increase for coverage of the structure, and they increased the landscape coverage by 15%. That was sort of the tit for tat. If you'll give us a little bit more land, we'll make it more lush and attractive as an infill project.
And then a 10,000 square foot building with 13 parking places with no off-street parking anywhere close to it?
It's my understanding that the use of the facility would not be, except for staff, most of the clients would not be driving themselves to this location. They would be escorted by family members or law enforcement. And staff felt that 12 plus the van accessible handicap were sufficient as we understand the use.
I guess for me, it's 10 years from now, when they're not there, what's the building going to be used for? If it goes to something else, I mean, it's virtually unusable with the 10,000 square foot footprint with a, I mean, I couldn't get a pickup in and out of the parking lot, it's so small. I mean, I have a problem with the parking lot. You know, it needs to be on a lot bigger footprint to have that big of a facility. At least that's my take on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not on planning, but I'm surprised planning hadn't addressed some of it. No doubt we need the facility, but is that a good location for it, would be my question.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Well, I want to open the public meeting if anybody wants to ask another question.
Can we defer it, or just from a standpoint so we can address some of that? I mean, you know, if it was a 6,500 square foot building with 25 parking places, it's a different, at some point, if they move out of it, it's useful for something else.
Well, again, the reason the PUD exists is for buildings and parking lots and setbacks that are not applicable to the standard zoning code. So the future use of the building perhaps would be limited. Perhaps the building wouldn't stay. I certainly can't answer that. I'm presenting as they did. I'm not sure which of the applicant's representatives are here, but I did see a few come in. They might be able to address, depending on who's here.
If they are, I guess we'll hear from them during the public meeting, or at least I hope we would.
Yeah.
Anybody got anything else? All right, seeing none, then what we'll do is we'll open the public hearing. Is there anybody here to speak in favor of this proposition? I say, gentlemen, come on up. You guys are all welcome to come. How are you, sir?
Good. Mr. Mayor and council members, my name is Terry Pollock. I'm the one that wrote the PUD as a representative of Red Rock. And we can go way back in time and explain all of why this all happened and all that. We won't do that right now, but there is no doubt that the parking has been an issue, and it had been discussed over and over and over again. And here's how we have decided, or this is why the PUD had to be done, because it certainly didn't meet the parking code, and we recognize that. And the reason that this building is large is for the needs of these ones that have this mental health problem. And the reason the parking lot is small is that there's 6 employees at a time that run this facility, one shift, and then 6 more on the second shift. So that's at the most 6 vehicles. The people that will be transported, now if I speak out of line, Red Rock is here to make sure I'm correct in what I say.
Absolutely.
The ones coming to the facility will be brought to the facility because of a urgent need. My understanding of that is that they are in a condition that the policeman will have to detain them to bring them to the facility. Okay? So grandma's not bringing her daughter that's had an overdose. So there's no real traffic issue here. And then they're in the facility for a short period of time, which has been a big issue as well, but they're brought by, say, a policeman, they're dropped off, and then if it's my family that's there, I don't get to come visit them. They're there until they're released from that facility to go to another facility if necessary where they can be visited. So there's no need for an in and out group of people coming and going from this facility. So the parking count, the only place that parking count will be congested during this functioning would be in the shift change is really what it amounts to. But otherwise than that, there's going to be extra parking sitting there that no one will be using. So the policeman will pull in, he'll unload, and then he will leave. Now, the reason that this facility has come up so quick to you and to us is that the state legislature has requested that these facilities be put into place because of a law that says policemen are not allowed to transfer people more than 30 miles now. And they used to be taken to Oklahoma City and other places as well. So the 30-mile radius has become a real problem. Therefore, this evolved into this. The reason this lot of its size was selected was they hunted high and low with a realtor that knows every square inch of your town, and there was just nothing available to provide something on a main street that has good access for the police to come and maybe ambulances to come as well. There was no access. So that's why this lot was selected. And the other value to Red Rock is it's right down the street, 100 yards from their other facility that they're just now finishing up on Harrison. So that's why all of it is in that fashion. What the future happens to the use wasn't really overly a big discussion because their needs are this. And that's why the document was written this way. And what we've given back to the city is, of course, the much greater landscaping. But the other thing that isn't written in the PUD, but is that Red Rock will make sure, as they always do, to maintain their landscaping. They're not, because they deal with people that need this look for calmness, if you will, and that's what they do for a living. So that's why the landscaping was so much, and everything is secured in this facility. Right. So that's my answer to some of those questions. So I can answer any others possibly.
Anybody got any other questions for the gentleman while we have him here?
So I guess really budget-wise, that's the only lot that fit. I mean, it's Harrison Street. You would kind of perceive it as a retail base, which, this generates 0 tax dollars. And it sounds like you want to be on a major thoroughfare.
It was important for them to have again, it is a mental health facility. So it's not like you can go into a residential neighborhood and that kind of thing. And again, the C3 underlying zone is this type of facility, as was she mentioned, that it is a part of that zone. It's already allowed. We're not asking for a request to change the use. That's already allowed in C3. So that's what you have. So that's a no-brainer there. But it was just it was one of these deals that appears to be not in a rush, but a great deal of time was spent to try to find an adequate lot, and it just was unavailable. Now, Shawnee is also another thing, is that politicians have put some pressure, if you will, on getting something in Shawnee. They there's going to be many of these around, but they wanted it here for some probably reasons that are obvious, that there's a need here. So they wanted one here. So that's how this all evolved to where we are right now this evening. And if you have any other Red Rock type questions, I'm the engineering type person, right. and then Red Rock is here, and the architect is here, and the realtor that has helped hunt for everything is here. So everybody's here if you have further questions.
Okay. Any further questions? No questions? I guess not.
Thank you.
Must have answered them all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anybody else that would like to speak in favor? Come on up, ma'am. How are you?
I'm Nelma Browning. I'm a realtor here in town.
Yes, ma'am.
I do a lot of commercial. As far as retail going down that far on Harrison, it's very slim. I do a lot with retail, strip centers and stuff, but I don't see it going down that far on Harrison. And since Red Rock's new building is right there, almost adjacent to this one, it allows them the process of walking to the other facility if they need to be up there, the management and all.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all. Any questions for me?
Any questions? I don't see any, but thank you so much.
You can see Kickapoo, that's retail. But most of my retail people won't go down past Independence or MacArthur. They're all staying out there.
I understand. I wouldn't want to build a retail business south of there either, but
Yeah.
I just, at some point,
Well, I've got a gentleman.
Maybe 20 years down the road, something else needs to go in there, and it's to me, the lot's too small to have 10,000 square foot building.
I've got 2 or 3 people right now looking for 10,000 square foot buildings. There hardly is any in the city of Shawnee. I'm working with economic development, trying to find something for them. I'm going to have to go outside of city limits, almost find them something.
There's, over on Kickapoo, there's lots.
No,
The horse shows have a lot over there that's right by,
I've got a couple lots over there too.
And there's property sitting around that I'm sure people own if they was just approached for something.
The only is, but like the Vision Bank, that 5 acres is 1.4 million. The 2 acres I have on Kickapoo is 1.225 million. Not many people can come in and spend that kind of money and build a 10,000 square foot building on it too. We're looking up to $6 to $8 million. So that's why I'm trying to chop them in smaller lots so I can get them faster, just like Vision Banks. I can divide that 5 acres if I get a buyer. But they're not looking for big lots. Very few of them are.
They want a small footprint.
Yep, they do. Okay.
Nothing on Airport Road?
I'm sorry?
Nothing on Airport Road?
Nothing. Well, out there where the industrial park is?
Well, this right there by the airport.
No, my clients don't want to go over in that area much. They all want to stay north. That's just the way they all are. So I just try to find what they want, just to bring more money into town.
That's a good thing. Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else like to speak in favor? Seeing none, we'll move on to anyone like to speak in opposition.
All right, I'm opposed to this. Nobody's brought up if we've done a traffic study as far as how this is going to affect the brown trucks coming out of there, since grandma's not dropping off her granddaughter and it's somebody coming in or maybe even stumbling up there because they know it's for mental health, man, a big brown truck will hurt somebody just stumbling across the street when it's dark. Now, at the same time, when we sent out these notices to the people around, did it say just for a rezone, or did it actually go into detail and say, hey, we're going to put a clinic there? And by the way, I was at that planning commission meeting. I recorded it since it's an open meeting. And it started out as 23 hours, and then it went to 5 to 7 days before they voted on it. And when they came up here and talked about it, nobody mentioned exactly how long people would be there. That was never stated. 23 or 5 to 7, which is it? I'm against this. Y'all should ask the daycare, do the traffic study, find out the exact length of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in opposition? I think he was, but I'd have to ask our city attorney, was it too late to allow someone to speak in favor? Sir, would you like to speak in favor?
I've worked for Red Rock for 16 years, and we operate crisis centers in Norman, Oklahoma City, and Weatherford. We just, about a year ago, built a $7 million facility in Weatherford, which we've been serving this community here for 40 years. We just finished that new facility on Harrison. Spent a little over $3 million, and this one will be another $3 million. Mostly what we work with is law enforcement and family, so there's really very little traffic that would come in and out of that facility. It's convenient in that it's right 100 yards from our other facility that has a larger parking lot. And I think I can address that. If we have issues, we can use that after hours and things. But I don't think we...
What does the footprint on the ones that you have look like? I mean, the other ones?
I think we kind of sent some pictures and stuff, and they're all... As far as the footprint, I mean, how long have we been...
But it's just the other lots that you're sitting on, is this the smallest as far as square footage of the building versus parking versus...
Yes.
I mean, it's a really condensed lot.
Yeah.
And I think you'll agree with it.
It was tight for the purpose we needed. It was tight in that we had a lot of pressure from legislators and the Department of Mental Health to move forward to serve, Potawatomi and Lincoln County.
I mean, I know you need to...
And so...
Between a rock and a hard place.
Right now, about 80% come in through law enforcement. 90% are stabilized in 5-6 days if they go to the crisis center. The urgent care is a new service that we do that kind of tries to stabilize people within 24 hours. Right now, you have about 250 trips that go to Norman to be served right now per year from these counties. So that eliminate a lot of that. And I talked to the governor of the tribe, and then we explained our services, and he was quite happy. Any other questions?
Anybody got anything else?
So not really, just can you speak to the open to the public aspect? Because you sit on the planning commission, and I operate a building that's 10,000 or just under 10,000 square feet, and we have 75 parking spots, but we're open to the public. I think that's a large component here. And, I think in some ways we need to consider future use, but at the same time, it's better than the structure that's currently there, that isn't generating revenue and is fairly dilapidated. So I can go on that. I think the open to the public aspect is important. So if I'm understanding the way you work, maybe I'll give you a little question. You can, if I was a member of the public that needed services, I would be more likely to access your facility 100 yards away.
Just to the south, yes.
Okay. And this is strictly a treatment?
This is strictly more evaluation
Gotcha.
and stabilization and a referral. Someone that might need a little more intensive than an outpatient. and then we refer to outpatient. So it's kind of, we work hand in hand. We wanted to find something close.
Sure, I understand.
Because there'll be some staff sharing at times.
Sure. Anybody, any other questions while we've got him here?
What I'm thinking, and to be open, I am, and I've talked to the city manager about it several times, I am personally against PUDs. And I'm thinking that at some point, the PUD was brought into this to where it would all fit.
Well, that, and we were pressed for time. I mean, the legislature appropriated the money for this session, this fiscal year, and so we're pushing to, and a lot of this came from Representative Wallace, who wanted to serve Shawnee and Lincoln County.
Are you anticipating lots of transferring between the two facilities, and that's why you need the close proximity?
That happens at times that, during the day, someone might need more evaluation and stabilization that might come down to the other facility, yes.
You said 250 trips a year from Shawnee to Norman.
Yes.
So would that mean you're expecting essentially one admittance a day? I mean, it's a little under one a day.
I think it'd be a lot more than that.
Okay.
So these trips, it's generally a police officer that's bringing them.
Police officers have been
Right.
transporting them to
Right.
Norman. Now it's there's the law went into effect November 1st.
Right.
Changed transportation for law enforcement that didn't have to transport more than 30 miles.
Right.
So they're waiting on a transportation
'Cause
company.
I know when I've done ride-alongs with some of our officers, they have told me that they have had to transport people as far as Guyman, which takes up our officers' time, and, I mean, that's a long round trip. So if they're doing that here locally, that's better than them having to run to Norman or somewhere else, and we keep our officers on the street here.
It's kind of like Weatherford, we kind of prioritize the local community too.
This
Right.
facility is mainly for the purposes of someone like an acute mental health crisis. For example, homeless people in our community that were having some sort of an acute crisis, this is where they would go.
Yes. We serve Shawnee now in Norman.
Right.
And we have 55 beds.
Right.
And so some of these, are going to be closer here and
Mhm.
will solve the transportation issue.
Yep. Any other questions?
I kind of feel like the parking lot won't be that utilized as your concerns are, and I'm closer to retirement than that, but I would hope they'll still be here 10, 15, 20, 30 years from now.
Being it's a state agency, it should be.
Well, we're actually not a state agency, we're a nonprofit, but we
So you're a
we contract with the state, yeah.
Yeah.
So how big is the facility you have here now?
In the new facility,
No, I guess, do we have a facility at all?
we don't have a 24-hour facility,
Not like
no, they
that.
go to Norman.
This will be a new service.
So what's the smallest facility you have?
What's the square footage in Weatherford?
That part of that building is about 8,000. It's connected to a counseling office in there. Instead of having to walk 100 yards.
It's just down the hall.
Right.
About 8,000.
We had already planned and built in our outpatient office before this came about to say, hey, we need this.
Mhm.
So then that's kind of, otherwise we could have done what we did in Weatherford and built it all as one facility.
Right. Anybody got anything else? Have you got anything else? Are you
I just
still-
thank you for your consideration, and it'll be a very beautiful facility for for Shawnee and Harrison Street.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak? You, if you'll come to the microphone, you'll have your opportunity to speak. Yes, ma'am.
It's a question. It's not, and I'm not for or against this, okay? Let me make that real clear here. My question is, and I'm not sure who can answer that, but what counties are going to be serviced at this facility?
Well, I mean, I know based on what he said, it'd be within 30 miles, so I don't.
Primarily Potawatomi and Lincoln County.
Right.
Chandler, Stroud, Shawnee.
Right.
Okay,
Okay.
that sort of answers my question.
Very good. Thank you, ma'am.
Because I'm concerned that if other counties, then we're bringing, officers are bringing other counties' problems here. That was just my thoughts.
No,
Thank you for.
Understand. Thank you. Anyone else?
Just to answer that,
Yes,
the
ma'am.
other counties surrounding here, Seminole,
Mhm.
Hughes County, they all have their own facilities that they transfer to.
Okay. Very helpful. All righty. We will close the public meeting. Is any other discussion? Get Ms. Klein back up here. If not, we're to the point where we need a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, sir. So, Daniel. Buddy. Oh,
No, second.
okay. Daniel and Travis. Okay, we have motion a second. We're up to the city manager to read the ordinance title.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. An ordinance concerning the zoning classification of the following described property located within the corporate limits of the city of Shawnee, Potawatomi County, Oklahoma, to wit, beginning 151.15 feet north of the southeast corner of Block 4, Yates Addition, to the city of Shawnee, thence west 150 feet, thence north 151.15 feet, thence east to the west side of Harrison Avenue, thence along the east line of said lot to a place of beginning, from zoning classification R3 multifamily residential district to C3 commercial highway district with a PUD planned unit development, and amending the zoning, the official zoning map of the city of Shawnee accordingly.
Thank you, sir. All right, we have a motion and a second for approval of item 9. We will call the question. All righty, motion passes 5 in favor, 2 against. All right, thank you very much for everybody's time. Item 10, consideration of an ordinance creating, amending, and providing for repealer of certain portions of Chapter 8, Article 6, business permits and licenses, residential garage yard sales of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Shawnee, providing for severability and declaring an emergency. So Mr. Vondran is up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. I'll be very brief. This fits into the housekeeping category. In 2019, the city fee schedule was revised to eliminate the fee associated with garage sale permits. This is to clean that up within the ordinance. It also is addressing the change in enforcement from the police department to planning or code enforcement, and then a few minor changes to address recurring problems that we've experienced with regard to frequency of garage sales at single locations. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody got questions for Joe? Don't see any questions. So, anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Mark and Darren. So you're back up, Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. An ordinance creating, amending, and providing repealer of certain portions of Chapter 8, Article 6, Businesses, Permits, and Licenses, Residential Sales of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Shawnee, providing for severability and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, sir. All righty, we have a motion and a second for approval of item 10. We will call the question. And motion passes 7-0. Item 11, consideration of resolution of the mayor and city commission of the city of Shawnee. Whoa, we need an emergency clause. We absolutely do. I was just thinking that when you said that. So we need a motion on the emergency clause.
Move to approve emergency clause.
Second.
Thank you, sir. Aaron and Daniel. All righty, so we have a motion and a second for the emergency clause for approval of that. We'll call the question. And motion passes 7-0. Item 11, consideration of resolution of the mayor and city commission of the city of Shawnee, Oklahoma, that repeals certain fees associated with residential garage yard sales and providing for the readoption of the city fee schedule in whole. So Mr. Vondran is up again.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, as you will all recall, we've gone to resolution-based fee code, fee schedule. And so anytime we make modifications, we readopt, and that's all this is. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody get any questions? No questions? Anyone like to make a motion?
Move to approve item 11.
Second.
Daniel and Cammie. All righty, so we have a motion, a second, and you're up again, Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A resolution of the mayor and city commission of the city of Shawnee, Oklahoma, that repeals certain fees associated with residential sales and providing for the readoption of the city fee schedule in whole.
Thank you, sir. All right, we have a motion and a second. We will, for approval of item 11, we will call the question. And that passes 7-0. I hate to ask, but could we take a 5-minute break? Okay, I would like to run down the hall. Item 12, consideration of the following budget amendments for the fiscal year 2021, 2022. So, Mr. Bussell, how are you, sir?
Doing well. Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, we have two budget amendments presented for your review and approval. The first is an adjustment associated with the union agreements and community development department. And the second is for current projects listed, previously approved purchase of a tractor and union contract bonuses. You have the memos in the packet. I'd be happy to address any questions that you have on those amendments.
Any questions? Everybody's busy chewing now.
Great time to present something right there.
Yeah.
Is this presentation part of?
No.
Okay.
Do not believe it is. No, I'm hearing lots of chewing, but I'm not hearing any questions. So. I had someone ask me, and I'll just pass it on.
Yeah.
This week, as some discussion on these items came up, was, in fact, a budget amendment. I mean, those are nothing unusual. We do those all the time, just about every month. I mean, we start out with a budget, which is a plan, and then as things change, we make changes. And it's not always when we spend money. A couple of months ago, we did one to add the money that came from the grant, the Love Your Neighbor grant,
Right.
but we had to put that money in the bank. So, I mean, budget amendments are something we deal with every month. You would agree with that, probably?
Yeah, I do agree. After the original budget is adopted by the commission at the beginning of the fiscal year or prior to, financial events occur, whether increase in revenue or we have financial needs during the year. We need to respond to those, and to respond, we need to appropriate money if we're going to expend.
Sure.
And that's what these budget amendments are there adjustments to that original budget that was adopted.
Right.
So just a point of clarification for me and maybe others, particularly in item B, we're not approving any projects tonight. We're simply making funds available should the commission choose to act at a later date on those projects.
Correct. They're appropriating the revenue that we have previously in order to expend that if a project is actually followed through with.
So we're not approving the code, we're not approving a project on the kayak area, and we're not approving the mausoleum restoration. We're simply anticipating that those could come in the fiscal year.
Correct.
And we have to allocate the money now.
Right.
For the potential to approve it later.
Yeah, before anything can be expended, you have to appropriate the funds at the beginning, on the front end.
So each of those we could approve or deny individually at a future date.
Yes.
Any other
Makes things
questions?
clearer.
Okay.
Other questions? Anyone got a motion?
Move to approve item 12.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second.
Darren and Mark. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve item 12. We'll call the question. Motion passes 7-0. Item 13, acknowledge monthly sales tax reports. Mr. Bussell is up again.
Yes. Mayor, Commissioners, sales tax came in well for the month of December. We were 16% above projections year to date. For prior year, we were up 13%, and in total, we were up about 5% from the prior year. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer. For the expenditure side, for the budget report, our largest fund, the general fund, is within budget.
Okay, very good. That's good news. Just have to bring that every month. Thank you, sir. All righty. Item 14, administrative report. So our item city manager. Andrea, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Awesome.
We do have a presentation as the projector is still out of order.
Yes.
We prepared handouts for you. Looking to IT to make sure that the rest of the audience will see that as well. So you just approved a budget amendment that included some funding for potential kayak area improvements. And I wanted to give you a quick update on what is currently going on with the Kayak Dock. And I have to be, there we go. As all of you know, there were 7 funders, 1 private, 4 businesses, and 2 nonprofits that got together and raised funds for the purchase of an accessible kayak dock. These funds were raised, the kayak dock was purchased, it is currently docked, but as you can imagine, for an accessible kayak dock, you have to have an accessible path, an accessible parking lot, and everything else. That money was not fundraised. That money is still needed. So this evening's budget amendment just simply is a pledge of the city to make sure that we will ultimately have an accessible kayak dock with all of the accessible infrastructure leading to it. At this point in time, the kayak dock is located on Lake 2, but there are multiple potential locations that the kayak dock could be located. And it is, although it is currently installed, that is not necessarily the end-all, be-all. And I kind of wish our representatives from the Lake Advisory Committee would have stayed.
I think they just walked back in.
Wonderful.
I'm glad they did.
We've been looking at multiple locations. 4 of those immediately rose to the top, and I would like to quickly walk you through those 4 locations, some of the pros and cons of each, just simply because we need to talk about that before we make any further investment. We just simply wanted to have the money to be able to do so.
Right.
Starting on boat ramp number 1 on lake number 1. You are all familiar with that boat ramp. It is well used. It is busy. There is a sufficient depth of the lake there to put a kayak dock. That is something that definitely has to be taken into account, because as the seasons change the water levels, we have to make sure that there is sufficient depth to actually float the dock. Otherwise, it would be unusable during the main season to use the kayak dock. So the problem there is we have a boat ramp very nearby, slope terrain just north of that boat ramp, and you will run into conflict situations with the motorized boats and the kayaks. The next location would be the Glen Collins Memorial Park. Again, heavily used park, very busy, and sometimes during the summer so crowded that it would probably not be wise to add any more infrastructure to that particular park. In addition to that, the only depth we have there would be pointing right into the canal. So if you were to locate a kayak dock right there, you would definitely impede the traffic that moves back and forth between Lake 1 and Lake 2. It is possible, but again, that would be heavily used park and definitely impede the boat traffic between Lake 1 and Lake 2. The third location that could be considered is the current location of the kayak dock itself. Number 2, Lake Park. It doesn't have a very, very pretty name at this point in time. Again, there is sufficient depth near the canal that connects both Lake 1 and Lake 2. There is the potential for conflicts, albeit the boats traveling between Lake 1 and Lake 2 travel at a lower speed. There is flat terrain, so it is more conducive to putting in place the accessible infrastructure, even though the boat dock, the kayak dock had to be built up. And of course, it is a currently underutilized area. that has actually seen some decrease of unsavory activities with the co-location of the Kayak Dock. And I wanted to mention that. Now, you all are aware that the Kayak Dock has been there since spring of this year, and we've had no incidents with boats traveling through the canal or the Kayak Dock. And then the fourth location, which has been brought up this evening too, is of course boat ramp number 2. There is also sufficient depth north of the current ramp, boat ramp, and north of the current dock that is co-located there. The problem there is it is a significant sloped terrain, and just as before, tight space, potential conflicts, because again, we have conventional motor boats, and then we would introduce kayaks, and that is already a busy park during the main season, so we would definitely have conflicts there. Now, in terms of timeline, the only thing that the City Commission decided on today was to put some money into the budget once the Lake Advisory Committee makes its recommendation on what should happen, both in terms of commercialization, both in terms of recreation use, and safety. So the only thing we've done today was actually put some money into the budget to where we can address the Kayak Dock issue once the Lake Advisory Committee renders its recommendation. And of course, we will wait for that because we do not want to do a preemptive strike. The committee was put in place in order to come up with the recommendations. You know that is the express wish of the City Commission, and so we'll just simply set aside the money for it. The reason we do that is because it is a long and drawn out process for the city to actually be able to do something. In your handout and also on the PowerPoint, it says up to 52 weeks, up to 1 year. And that is because once we decide what we're going to do and where we're going to do it, we have to go out for final design, then we have to go out for bid, and then we have to go out for construction. And as any city project that relies on all of these 3 steps, it takes time to work through the process. The last thing we want to do then is just move through a budget amendment and add more time to it.
Right.
And with that said, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Anybody got any questions?
Would the location be part of the design process?
The location is something that I know that the Lake Advisory Committee is currently contemplating. So the location itself would come before the design process.
I had like 5 questions written down, and you answered all of them in your presentation, so thank you.
I'm glad.
I just would like you to reiterate that we have not made any other decisions other than to supply funds towards future possibilities, that we will wait on those possibilities to come from the advice of our Lake Advisory Committee. Yeah.
That is correct. There has been no agreement that has been entered into for commercialization anywhere for the Kayak Dock. And I know that that was part of the public comment earlier.
Any other questions? Everybody seems satisfied. Thank you for the information. It's been very, very helpful. All righty, so we are to item 15. Do we have any new business?
No new business.
Thank you, ma'am. 16, Commissioner comments. Let's start on your end tonight.
Just want to quickly say Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everyone. Hope we can all do something to make someone's Christmas season special. I will accept Representative Kerb's challenge and go out and buy some hams tomorrow. And I do want to say thank you because I know 17 city employees made a donation of hams and turkeys. And so our city staff goes above and beyond so many times, and good to see them responding to that as well. So Merry Christmas to everyone. Hope your holiday season is great.
I wanted to say thank you to the staff for all their hard work and their presentations today. I had a lot of questions going in and a lot of stress, and then listening to the presentations cleared up so many of those questions preemptively. So I appreciate the diligence that I see being put into the preparation for each of the meetings. I was excited to hear that the sales tax was up, and would also just like to reiterate, with a broken record, if you still have Christmas shopping to do, please spend your money locally, and if possible with a locally owned business, because we get to keep more of that money in our town. And I hope everyone has a peaceful holiday this coming week.
Thank you, ma'am.
As always, thank you, city staff, for being the hardworking, amazing individuals that you are, and for committing so much of you, and not just your work day, but your lives to the Shawnee and its residents. We greatly appreciate all of your hard work. I was concerned on first glance about the approval of the monies towards the dock, thinking that we were putting ourselves in a place where that our individuals that are working so hard on the Lake Advisory Committee would feel like they were working in vain, and I hope that through the explanation of what that was for, that they don't feel that way. And if they have any of those, please reach out to one of us so that we can talk about that. And because I truly do believe that the time and efforts they're putting in right now are very important, and that they are, nobody wants to think that they're working for something that ultimately doesn't matter. And so I hope that that's not a sentiment from them at all. I thank you all to the advisory members for giving us your time and for helping us to make a safer, more usable lake area. We've talked about this so many times, that it's such a gem for the city of Shawnee for us to have that, and I know that we can all work together to help it be something that everybody can enjoy for years and years to come. Oh, goodness. Merry Christmas. Be safe traveling for the holidays. And we hope, again, like Ms. Cammie said, hope that you spend your money here in Shawnee.
Good. Thank you, sir.
Thanks to the staff for all their work all year long. Hope everyone has a Merry Christmas. This agenda took a lot of preparation, so thank everyone for that. And as a couple or everyone has mentioned, shop local. You have 3.5-ish, 4 more days, or need to start by Thursday probably, like I will. So anyway, Merry Christmas to everyone and a Happy New Year.
Amazon can't save you now.
Yeah.
No, it's local.
But I'm across the street.
That's expensive.
It is, isn't it? No, I appreciate staff. A lot of times they bring us stuff, and we don't get as much explanation as sometimes we think we need. But Andrea does a good job. I appreciate kind of going into that. Me and Darren coming in talked a little bit about the kayak and what we were doing, as far as we kind of presumed that we were setting funds aside, that it wasn't designated really for any one thing. So the mausoleum being another thing, so we'll figure out plan of attack on both of those. But we have to finish the Kayak Dock. I mean, you can't just start it and not just leave it set there. But I appreciate Dale coming in and kind of challenging everybody. I think we lose focus of what Christmas is all about a lot of times. So I wish everybody a Merry Christmas, and I appreciate what everybody does. Benny?
I did not hear a thing that I disagreed with from my fellow commissioners. I concur everything, and I just wish everybody a good holiday and a happy, safe New Year's.
There you go. Very good. Yeah, and I'd kind of echo the same thing. Wish everybody Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Appreciate all the hard work that staff has put in for us. We really, really do appreciate that, and we just couldn't do it without you. Keep shopping in Shawnee. I know I've been out at the mall quite a bit lately amongst a lot of other places, and every place just seems packed, which is really good. And I know the information you gave us tonight was, a couple months. It takes before it trickles down to this point, but I don't think I've seen that things have slowed down any. So it seems like lots of folks are spending their money here in Shawnee, which I really appreciate. And I really wish the lake folks hadn't run off, because I know Ms. Camarado, I was hoping she'd be here, but she's left. She sent an email to all of us, and that makes it really hard for us to respond, because if we respond back, then basically we've got a meeting in effect, and we can't do that. So I did not respond to her, and I really hate that I didn't have that opportunity to do it. But if I did that, I'm basically breaking the law, and I'm not gonna be a part of that. So I would have been happy to talk with her one-on-one, or reply to her email one-on-one. But I just can't do that. I'm not trying to get on to her. It's just I want to make the point, if you want to get a response from us, you kind of need to deal with us individually. That doesn't mean you can't do that 7 times, but it's we just want to make sure we do things legally. And another thing is I know there was a lot of fuss this week when we heard when the agenda went out, but I think if people would have just kind of listened to the whole story, which they didn't hear tonight, they'd see there really wasn't much to a lot of those concerns that they had. So anyway, please try to hear the whole story. A lot of this stuff can be cleared up with a simple phone call to City Hall, or an email to your commissioner or to me. I mean, we're always glad to talk to you, and we're always glad to try to set things straight and give you good information. And if we don't have the answer, we'll find it for you. I mean, I do that probably 100 times a week, is get people an answer to their questions, and I'm always happy to do that. I know these other folks up here are too. So anyway, that's probably all I got. So everybody have a good Christmas, good New Year's, and I understand it's supposed to be like 75 degrees on Christmas. So that'll be nice, I guess. So with that, we are adjourned, and we will go to the airport authority. So item 1 is consider approval of consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second.
Aaron and Mark. Okay, we have motion and second for approval of item 1. Call the question. Motion passes 7-0. Item 2 is new business.
No new business.
Thank you, ma'am. We are adjourned, and we will move on to the municipal authority. Item 1 is consider the approval of the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Daniel and Cammie. We will call the question for approval on item 1. And it passes 7-0. Any new business?
No new business.
We are adjourned. Time to go home. Thank you, everybody, very much.